Hi, friends. This episode of Big Blue Banter is brought to you by Prize Picks. Head on over to Prize Picks and use promo code BANTER, and they'll match up to $100 on a new deposit. Thank you and enjoy.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. Today we're here to do it. It's the dueling 7-round mock drafts. This is going to be a fun one. Nick and I both used the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator. We allowed for trades, and we both, on our own, came up with our own 7-round mock drafts. I have no idea what Nick's picks are. He has no idea what my picks are. We're going to talk first about our themes of our draft, what we tried to accomplish, what we did think we accomplished. And then after we do that, we're going to go through the picks. We're going to share the board and show how it played out on Pro Football Focus Simulator. But we're going to first talk about the themes and get to some of the picks. And then so I don't want to give away I don't want Nick to see all the picks I made early in case we have some similar ones. And I don't want him to see, and I don't want to see all of his either. So we're going to get at it that way. But Nick, let's start with you.
Yeah, let's start with me, who's wearing a Giant
team.
shirt, by the way. You're not wearing a Giant shirt.
I'm worn plenty of Giant shirts. I did Giant
but
shirts.
not when you're the general manager. You are Dan Schneier, the general manager of the New York Giants. Look, when have you ever seen me wear a Giant shirt other than the one that's camouflage, right? But right now,
I don't know why you don't wear enough.
When I was in Arizona, I didn't have that many, and I just moved back. So now I actually have access to the shirts that I left back at my parents' house. That is a legitimate excuse. That's possibly the fans can decide, right? But I wanted to wear this shirt because Nick Filato and Dan Schneier are the general managers of the New York Giants for the 2024 draft. So Dan, should I kick off right now just discussing my overall philosophy and what I was trying to do?
Yes.
Okay. So when I was in the first round, I picked up the phone, made a phone call to the New England Patriots. There were some preliminary talks before the draft. I wanted to know what the Patriots were thinking. So maybe I made a trade, maybe I didn't, but I want to say one thing about my draft philosophy. I wanted to surround maybe this young signal caller that was possibly selected at number 3 overall. I wanted to surround that signal caller with talent on the offensive side of the football, maybe on the offensive line, possibly a running back, maybe a wide receiver. And the defense was a little bit neglected because of that, but I felt it very necessary to surround this hypothetical quarterback with the right pieces that he can grow with an offensive coaching staff to maximize the ceiling of said quarterback. Dan, what was your philosophy?
Yeah, very interesting going into this thing. My theme and my philosophy was a few things. One, it was to get younger, to stay young. I'm looking at this team and this franchise and where they're at right now is something that I'm not worried so much about 2024. Yes, we have some pieces I like, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Andrew Thomas mainly, and then some ancillary pieces. But I'm not currently worried as much about the now. I'm more worried about setting my team up for the future. And part of what I wanted to do in my process was focus, if I could meet talent with need on the offensive side of the ball. Because quite frankly, while the Giants have invested a lot in the offense over the last 5 years, they've invested enough on the defense. 1, 2, the offense simply doesn't score points. It's been one of the worst offenses in the NFL over the past 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. This offense needs revamping. I need to be adding assets to the offense side of the ball. I also feel like some of these positions that are needs on defense, I can fill with veterans and free agency as we get into August and September. And I can fill in other years, next year's class with free agents. I sometimes feel like some of these defensive positions are better once you get to the second contract with a player because it takes some time to develop. And you don't always know with some of these defensive secondary positions, for example, if they're going to hit right now. I also feel comfortable, Nick, with having Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Dexter Lawrence on my defensive line that I can win football games with them simply winning for me, with them taking, and Bobby Okereke as well, taking some pressure off the need for secondary because I'm going to win with my front, the need for linebackers because I'm going to win with my front plus Bobby Okereke. And with that in mind, I was looking to build this offense out and put the Giants in a place moving forward where their offense can win. Now, in addition to that, I focused on a few other things in addition to youth and offense. I focused on athleticism. This is something I've noticed Joe Shane has done as well. Athleticism has been a big part of his projection. Most of the players you're going to see that I drafted, Nick, are projecting picks. I am projecting their traits and their athleticism to the NFL level. Some of these guys weren't the most productive players at college, but they are going to be more productive in the NFL because they have the traits that translate to the NFL. One more theme in my draft, Nick, before we get to it is, look, the Giants have drafted 7 players from their top 30 private visits over the last 2 years. We're going to see some top 30 private visits in my picks as well, because that gives the Giants and me information on these players. I get to find out if my initial thoughts on them are confirmed, or if something I thought was wrong. Well, I can bring him in, I can talk to him, I can put him in front of the board. Now I can see if he actually fits my plan moving forward, Nick. So those are my main themes for the draft. Anything else you want to get to before we get into what we did in round one?
Yes, I want to ask you, how many picks did you make?
Oh, that's a fun question. Let me take a look at my final draft. I don't want to ruin anything. Let's see. I made a total of 6 draft picks. How about you?
I had 7 draft picks.
Okay.
So one more than what the Giants currently
I have another question for you.
Okay.
How many trades did you make?
I made 2 trades.
Okay.
2 trades in this draft. Yeah, I didn't get too crazy. And as you can probably collect, if you want to just start this off right now, I can kick it off. I did make a trade up to pick 3 with the New England Patriots, and I selected UNC quarterback Drake May. And in doing that, I had to give up pick 47, next year's 2nd, and next year's 3rd round pick. So slightly less than what the Jets gave up to trade up for Sam Darnold back in 2018. I didn't have to give up the 1st round pick next year, which I absolutely loved. And to me, it makes sense to get Drake May for a ton of reasons. Look, the ceiling. We've talked so much about the ceiling. There is an infrastructure in place right now, though, with the New York Giants that will not thrust Drake May into the limelight if he is not ready. I think Drake May can start this year. I don't think he's this complete project like a lot of other people seem to suggest. I do think there are a lot of things that need to be ironed out. But why would Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll not trade up to get this guy that they're obviously in love with to some degree, right? Joe Schoen has been to how many games, Dan, of Drake May's? He has
6.
this close relationship, 6 games, this close relationship with Mac Brown dating back to the 2022 draft, where he selected Marcus McKeithen, where he selected Josh Azudu as well, right? And you have a quarterback whisperer in Brian Daboll who has already unlocked the potential of a raw athlete who was coming out of college in Josh Allen. So I just think there is a confluence of realities that suggests the Giants should go after Drake May right now. Are you really just going to keep going with mediocre quarterback play when you are this close to actually seizing the quarterback if New England is willing? That's the real question. If New England is not willing, then yes, you have no control over that. But if they are willing and you can trade up and you can get Drake May, when you're this close, Dan, why would you not do that? And you don't have to start him because you have Drew Lock and you have Daniel. It's just a perfect situation and a perfect scenario for Drake May. And I believe it's a perfect scenario for the New York Football Giants as well, with such a high ceiling. We're talking about top 5 ceiling in the draft. I had to do it, so I went with Drake May.
There you go. That was Nick's 1st round pick. He traded up from 6 to 3 to select Drake May. When I was on the clock, well, I didn't get to when I was on the clock, Nick, because when the Patriots were on the clock at number 3 overall, I came a calling as well. And I wanted to find out if they were willing to do it. And Elliot Wolf said, look, we love Jaden Daniels. We loved Caleb Williams. We don't love Drake May the way you guys love Drake May. And that's obvious. And nobody does. I don't know if anybody does. Like you said, Joe Schoen's been to 6 of his games. And Brian Daboll's already worked with a quarterback with his similar skill set to Drake May and maximize that quarterback. So he said, I'll build up my roster. I want to make sure, though, that I get one of these elite wide receivers, Nick. So I traded from 6 to 3. I gave up a little more. I gave up something different than you. I gave up my 2nd round pick next year, my 3rd round pick this year, my 3rd round pick next year, and Darius Slayton. I love Darius Slayton.
Okay.
Yes, I love Darius Slayton. Look, the Patriots, they like the tape too. They saw what me and you saw when we broke down his all 22. They said, look, he gets open a lot more than people realize. His open rate is crazy. There's been so many opportunities that have been missed because the quarterback didn't seize them and he didn't see it. We like him. We don't think he's amazing, but we think he's, they would never say this, but we think he's like a wide receiver too. And we could use that style player for our system. And we love the play against the Texans where he caught that little pass around the line of scrimmage and basically won the game for the only offense production that game 2 years ago. So, there are moments that he's had that have really been good for you guys. And now we want to bring them to us. So I gave up Darius Slayton. But yes, at pickup number 3 overall, no surprise, I drafted Drake May. If you guys want to hear our entire thoughts on his strengths, concerns, deep dives on him, we did a podcast on Drake May. For those who don't know, a few days ago, it dropped on the page. And in that podcast, we also broke down tape. There are plenty of examples of some of the things that we love about his game and dislike about his game, but love about his game mostly, and how we project at the NFL level. There's plenty of game tape. Go watch it. There's a ton of good film in that. So take your time. But for me, what it comes down to here is this, Nick. One, I don't know. This is the main thing here for me. I don't know how many more opportunities, Nick, and how soon I'm going to have them. Where as a GM of the Giants, I'm going to get a chance to draft a guy with the frame, 6'4", 230, the athleticism. And I swear to God, if this guy did run at the combine, Nick, and did all the agility tests and combine, I think we would have Giants would have no chance at him right now. And everyone would be like, oh, this is the easy number 2 overall pick. That's how his athleticism looks on tape. He ran for 717 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2022 as a freshman at UNC. With the size, the frame, the athleticism, and the arm talent, those 3 things, and the leadership. You listen to his teammates talk about him. You listen to how his coaches talk about him. It's all there. It's all there, those 4 things. In addition to the arm talent, which I've mentioned, but it's just so important to me because I talked about this in the last podcast, Nick. There's not a single elite quarterback in the NFL that doesn't have great arm talent and plus arm talent. Not one. People have argued Joe Burrow. Well, go watch his film. The way he puts the ball placement, the anticipatory throwing, that makes his arm talent elite. And I think Drake May, working with Brian Dable, can clean up the mechanics, can clean up the footwork, can learn the right way. Brian Dable's done this already with Josh Allen. So I wanted to make sure, because I don't know next year. Look, I don't know next year if I'm going to have another chance at a 6'4", 230 athlete with this kind of arm talent. I don't know if it's going to happen in 2025. 2026, 2027. I don't know when this is going to happen. Not every draft class has this. There was a Kenny Pickett draft class, right? There's this freaking like EJ Manuel type draft classes. There's some bad draft classes from an overall arm to even the Kyler Murray class. Like this dude is way higher ceiling to me than Kyler Murray. Okay. So I don't know when I'm going to find this again. I'm not risking this opportunity. So I did it and I took my pick and, I gave up some picks to do it. 3 picks and also 3 picks plus Darius Slayton. It's a lot. But you know what? And I like Slayton. It's a lot, Nick. But you know what? I got my guy. I'm super excited about it. And I get to move on to round 2 because I kept 47. You have missed, you traded 47 years, correct?
I did trade 47, okay. Yes.
And by the way, just a little thing here. I went Trader Joe. I'm about to explain what happened in round 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so round 2 got a little fun for me. And in addition to having this fun throughout my draft, Nick, I dipped into some future capital. Okay. I knew this was going to have to happen. It has to happen. This class is good. I went for my quarterback. I wanted to fill him. I wanted to give him some options and really have guys evolve with my quarterback, Drake May. I wanted to make sure that was important to me. These guys can come in a rookie mini camp with May. They could start to develop rapport, things of that nature. So in round 2, Nick, I started making trades, and there is a precedent to this, right? Joe Shane did this 2 years ago. He had that early round 2 pick, traded it with the Jets. The Jets traded up for Breece Hall. Then he moved back again and eventually got Wan'Dale Robinson. He did multiple trades to acquire more assets. And after giving up so many assets in round 1, I was looking to do the same thing. So, Nick, I started off in round 2 by trading back with the Steelers. I gave up 47, 107, and my 6th round pick next year. I got 51, 84, and 178. Then I traded 51 for 57 and 92, and I gave up 51 and 166. So I kind of condensed some picks, got some decent capital that I wanted, moved back a little. Now, let me tell you why I moved back from 47. I considered drafting there, but 2 picks before me really hurt me. 2 picks before me. This one was Ricky Pearsall comes off the board. And I wanted to get Drake May, Ricky Pearsall after seeing the work he did with Josh Downs 2 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, if he could do this kind of production with Josh Downs, give him Ricky Pearsall and see what happens.
Give him Wan'Dale Robinson.
Give him Wan'Dale Robinson. But we have Wan'Dale Robinson anyway. But also, I looked at it after that and I just wasn't all in on the receivers that were available there. Then I considered Christian Haynes. He was on the board. He's someone we've talked about with some analysts lately. But I like some other guys later on the interior offensive line, and I was taking a risk there. And I just wanted to acquire some capital back, Nick. So finally, I got my pick. I didn't trade back from it. And at 57 overall, and this is my only pick in the second round after some trade backs. At 57 overall, Nick, I picked Jaden Hicks, the safety out of Washington State. Okay. He was a top 30 visit for the Giants. And once he was a top 30 visit for the Giants, I started to really dig into him and watch him. And I got to say, man, there are some unbelievable high point moments on his tape. You see the play against Washington against Jalen Polk where he's lined up in the slot off coverage and he just shows crazy traits on that play. It was an interception. He shows crazy ball tracking traits and then the ability to take the ball away in a 50-50 situation there. And then I'm watching him more and I'm seeing him all over the field. I'm reminded in some ways of what I like so much about Jalen Petrie and what I like so much about some of these kinds of big nickel type safety defenders who are just all over the field, always showing up around the ball a lot. I think he could be a dime linebacker at times with Shane Bowen. I think he could take away some of the tight ends and big slots. The Giants don't really have anyone currently on their roster who's 6'2" like him, who can match up against those big slots. And I saw it And I think the projection shows it could be even more. He's a former corner. I love that as far as traits go. But I think also what's really going to be good for him is when he's coming downhill. And basically, in a lot of ways, he's going to be what they lost from Xavier McKinney. And I know the defense is different and they're not going to use him the same way Wink Martindale did, but he can be used in a variety of different ways. He's played in the box a bunch. He's played over the slot. He can go the outside in some matchups. He can take away some of those big slots. I like his kind of trajectory as well, Nick, as far as like I think there's still a lot of like, his best season came last year, and he's made a jump in each season. I feel like there's still so much left to unpack. I looked into his history a little bit. He was the first defensive freshman All-American in Washington State program, or at least in the last 6 years. I'm sorry. He was an all Pac-12 preseason honorable mention as well last year. And if you look a little bit deeper into what he can do, I just think the traits make him really interesting. He was tied for 11th in the nation as well, Nick, with 24 run stops. He's all over the place. And then the athletic profile, as far as projection goes, it's really strong, man. It's just under 6'2", 211, but he runs a 4.5 at 6'2", 211 with a pretty good 20-yard split, pretty good 10-yard split, and a really good three-cone drill, 6.88, as well as great jump. So I just think he's really versatile. He'll be a little bit of a weapon for this defense, be used in a lot of different ways. And hopefully my projection, if he reaches his ceiling with us, is that he can take away these big slots and these matchup in these matchup situations and big receivers that the Giants like don't simply have right now.
So Jaden Hicks is one of the funnest come downhill and smack you in the mouth players in this entire draft.
Yeah.
Just an absolute enforcer who will, I think, be somebody that just is an imposing figure over the middle of the field. What I saw on his tape on the vertical seams and plays like that, absolutely. I think he's actually really good in man coverage. I think he's really good at getting his head around and then harassing the catch point and showing his play strength. But my concern with Hicks is he's stiff. Every time I've seen him, every time I saw Hicks cover a tight end or a big slot, and it was a horizontal route or like a 90-degree cut, you can see that there was a stiffness. Or when he was tasked, and I do like that Washington State tasked him to do this, to press and jam at the line of scrimmage. If he missed that and he wasn't precise with his hands, him turning felt like it took like a second and a half. Now I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but I just think there is a stiffness to him that is going to limit his upside at the next level. But at the same time, this is the type of dude who is going to lay those hits that are going to be all over SportsCenter and all over Twitter, and who will be that player who offensive guys, wide receivers are going to be like, I got to go over the middle of the field against this guy. Are you kidding me? That's the type of player that maybe the Giants need in their secondary, because they don't have that right now, right?
No enforcer.
They have no enforcer.
I hope he's not the next Adam Archuleta in that stiffness, because he was just like the stiffest player ever, I felt like. But like, that's dating it way back. And I see what you mean. I do think he is somewhat of like not stiff is I know people will take that one way, and I can see what you mean. It's like that lengthy athlete that you don't know if he has those loose hips. But I think if you use him in the right way, maybe he's not tasked to do because I will agree with you. The plays I liked when he was matched up against receivers and bigger receivers was mostly on the vertical plane and like those slot.
There were a lot of them too.
Yeah,
there were a
good amount of those, and he looked super athletic to me on those, honestly, and really good at the catch point, which I thought was really impressive.
I think he's a good, once he is turned, he can stride out, and I think he is coordinated in the sense that he can stride out and then turn his torso and look up for the football and still maintain balance and good posture while he's striding out. It's just the turning part of it that is, I would just say, it's not like the worst in the NFL or anything like that, but it's just suboptimal for a guy that you're taking on day two, in my opinion. But I still think, for all the reasons that you laid out, there is still an athlete there and a player there that can come in and execute a lot of different roles that the Giants need. I mean, the Giants need is safety. So yeah, I could definitely
get a physical player coming down the alley. They just need that so bad. Who in the secondary can do that right now?
Pinnock is a little wild.
Pinnock can.
He's a little wild, but I still think there's a lot of upside there. And we keep forgetting, like, Pinnock's like, I think 24, 25 years old.
I feel like they're going to want to use Pinnock deep in this.
They might. I think if Dane Belton earns snaps, he should be the player that you're using deep, because he's not that great in run support. And we've seen range and high level processing from Belton, even though a lot of his interceptions, I think Schmelke mentioned this in the episode, a lot of Belton's interceptions have kind of been like, hey, I'm in the right place and the ball just kind of finds me, but sometimes you create your own luck. So one player that came to my mind when I was watching Hicks, and I wanted to get your take on this, Jamal Adams.
Oh, I like that one. I'd
Yeah.
like that one. I didn't think of that. I know exactly what you mean. Early career Jamal, like
See,
LSU Jamal Adams to
yeah, well,
me. But
LSU. That's why I said diet, because LSU
yeah,
Jamal
that
Adams
was
was like,
freakish. Yeah, he's
yeah,
not that level. No, and
no.
that's obvious. He would be a top, earlier pick if he was.
I think you get the next pick as well because I don't pick till 82.
No, no, no. I've made trades, and my next pick is 84. So you are picking
Okay.
ahead of me.
I am picking ahead of you. So pick 70 rolls around, and I pick up the phone. I call Chris Ballard, call those
Oh, nice.
Indianapolis Colts, and I say, yo, I need to recoup some picks. I traded a lot to go up and get Drake May. So let me try to recoup some of these picks, trade with the Colts, allow them to jump up and select somebody. I don't even know who. Oh, by the way, the Patriots ended up getting Marvin Harrison Jr. in my draft. So they still got
Nice.
Marvin Harrison Jr.,
Still
got that
happy.
number one
Yeah.
receiver at 6. Good for them, right? So I get pick 82, pick 117, and pick 191 to drop back 12 picks. I'll sign up for that any
Yeah.
day of the week. And I selected interior offensive lineman Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State, top 30 visit for the New York Giants. Just a very fun personality if you watch him in any of the interviews that you get to see him in. Sai told us on his episode about the interviews. I went and I watched a couple, and you could see that, right? Wildly versatile offensive lineman. Won't be able to play tackle in the NFL because he has Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, but the guy's built like a fire hydrant. And he's so physical, and he's actually coordinated and balanced when he is in space. And I think this is the type of player that left guard, right guard, long term, he's going to seize that, and he could start year one as well while being a fan favorite. Like I know a lot of people say, "Oh, Will Hernandez," because he's a little boxy. He is a little boxy, but I think he's so much more of a coordinated athlete than Will Hernandez. And while Will Hernandez was strong at the point of attack in college, Cooper Beebe, man, you see him toss dudes around. So at pick 82, getting an interior offensive lineman that doesn't even need to start this year, but ideally will. I'm going to sign up for that any day of the week to help protect Drake May and keep him in the pocket so he doesn't run around like crazy and end up getting hurt, although he can do that, Drake May, because he's that talented.
So now you have Drake May on your team and you have Cooper Beebe. You drafted Drake May, your quarterback of the future, and now you got him protection first. You built out the trenches first. Instead of, hyper focusing on this need for pass catchers, you've understood in my mind the reality that what really wins in the NFL is quarterback plus trench play. And you have to be able to protect this guy, especially from the interior. And, you said ideally he'll start this year. I'm not even sure. I think ideal scenario for me, Nick, is especially because he's a rookie and sometimes it takes time for rookies. Like we've been spoiled by some, not the Giants, but like the other teams have been spoiled by like Creed Humphrey types and Trey Smiths that just hit it right away. Doesn't always happen. So ideally, I still think Illuminor right guard, Neal right tackle, if ideal. Like this is perfect world, right? Like Neal takes the jump we need him to make, Evan Neal, and Illuminor, just has that leg up from being in the system. But I do really like what you did there. And I like the trade back as well, recouping some assets just like I did. That was what, 80 what?
That was just pick 82.
Okay. So now you've got Drake May and Cooper Beebe. I've got Drake May and Jaden Hicks. We both at this point have two guys each who had top 30 visits. And remember, seven of the Giants picks in the last two drafts have been top 30 visits. So I think there's a little bit of a trend there. But my next pick is 84. And there's a guy on the board at 84 who I really liked. And after going Jaden Hicks as an enforcer for my secondary, somebody I think can really help fill a big void that was left by McKinney. If I really think back to just a lot of that all 22, the second half of the year, man, we just kept, I know he had a little small stretch of bad play, McKinney, but that second half, man, he was such an important piece all over the field. They just need someone like that. So it was important for me to get that. But, after doing so, I was like, look, I missed my wide receivers. I didn't give Drake a wide receiver. I didn't give him an interior offensive lineman yet, or any kind of offensive lineman yet. But what I want to prioritize here is adding some kind, because I'm just looking at our team right now, losing Saquon Barkley, right? I want to give some explosion to this team. I want to give a home run threat to this team. And sitting on the board at 84 overall is Trey Benson, the running back out of Florida State, who we covered a little while ago. And so, you know what, Nick? I told you this on that pod. If he's there at 70, I said I'd be interested. If he's there at 84, I'm even more interested. And I added a 4.39 speed running back to my roster immediately. Now I give Drake May. I can't give him that wide receiver one out of this draft because it just didn't work out. But instead, I gave him somebody who defenses have to account for. With 4.39 speed, you could see it on film. Yes, he's not the best in a phone booth, but he did break the forced missed tackle rate in and in Pro Football Focus in 2022, the highest forced missed tackle rate in the history. And forced missed tackles have really translated. Even a guy like Travis Etienne, who I did not like his tape, has been pretty productive in the NFL. And I think a big reason of that is his ability to make forced missed tackles. And he, just like Benson, they're not the same back, but they're the same in the sense that they're not phone booth force missed tackle guys. They're not just Shady McCoy juking in and out. They're beating you with angle manipulation, and they're beating you with stride length, and they're beating you with their, in my opinion, ability to process space in the second and third level. That's something I love about Trey Benson's film. I also love his contact balance. He doesn't go down to arm tackles. I comped him to the running back from out of Seattle, Kenneth Walker. Though I agree with you, he's not quite Kenneth Walker. He still is an explosive player. Now defenses have to account for him, and it takes a little bit of a burden off of Drake May, Nick. And one thing I want to add is, because you brought this up to me, and I looked back and I thought about it. When I first watched Trey Benson, the Wake Forest screen pass, I'm like, oh shit, this was awesome. Like, he manipulated the angle, he killed the safety on it. But I was like, oh, I saw the game where he really just looked awful as a receiver, and I was like, oh, and this is kind of bad. And then you make me go look back, and you're like, take a look at some of the plays on these wheel routes and his ability to adjust his body in the air and get toward it and make these catches. I was like, you know what? I actually kind of see like an upside as a receiver. So now I'm giving Drake May the potential for an upside as a receiving back as well. He may realize it, he may not, but regardless, he's going to have the traits I've seen of him as a runner. Obviously, we hope, and this is not something that we can, determine, you and I, Nick, that the medicals check out. He had a massive injury. And if they did, that's just I don't know, and I can't use that right now. But assuming this, my pick is assuming that they do, Nick. And running backs will fall in drafts. So this is just a prime spot for me to get an explosive player. So I took Trey Benson there. So now I've got Drake May, Jaden Hicks, and Trey Benson. And actually, I'm now 3 for 3 on top 30 private visits as well.
3 for 3. Nice, Dan. Yeah, 6.1 yards per attempt in college collectively over all 3 years, 24 touchdowns, just under 2,000 yards. And I'm glad that you went back and watched some of that tape. He had this one catch along the sidelines. It might have been Wake Forest. I am forgetting exactly who it was. It was a back shoulder throw by, I think, Jordan Travis. And he just like caught it, got his feet in bounds, and it just looked so smooth. And that was like, this guy can receive. They just didn't ask him to do it all that often. I think my comp to him was Lamar Miller, if I'm not mistaken, because he is kind of speed, a slasher. Yeah, so I think there is a good NFL career for Trey Benson. I went offense again.
Okay, what pick are you next? Okay, I actually have a pick before 107 if we want to
go, my friend.
Okay, yes. So remember earlier I made some trades. So I have one more pick, and it's at 97. Before your pick, I mean, and it's at 97. And the way that this board fell for me, Nick, I was able to get this player at 97. It's a player who you actually selected already. It's Cooper Beebe. So Cooper Beebe's on the board for me at 97 overall. Another player the Giants have shown interest in, and I just couldn't help myself here. I was so excited I'd already had my speed home run threat for Drake May. Yes, it's not a receiver, but he is a speed home run threat. Now I want to protect Drake May. I want to build out the trenches for Drake May. And you said a lot of great things about Cooper Beebe, and one of these things you mentioned, but he really is, at least from a testing standpoint, a lot more athletic than people thought he would be, or than people maybe gave him credit for. According to Math Bomb, Kent Lapley, the RAS score, he was the 102nd most athletic guard out of 1,445 athletic guards since 1987. We're talking about a 10-yard split of 175 at 322 pounds. That's insane. A 20-yard split, I don't care as much about, but the 10-yard split I do, which was also good. The shuttle and the 3-cone, man, a 7.44 3-cone and a 4.61 shuttle. That's the big one for me. That's change of direction right there. And then a crazy good broad jump despite a bad vertical. I never understand this. This is just like Jaden Hicks had a great 3-cone but a bad shuttle. It never makes sense to me when the vertical and the broad don't add up, or the shuttle and the 3-cone.
Can you give me those measurements or those testing one more time?
Sure. Yeah. 6'3", 322, 20 bench press reps, a 175 10-yard split, a 4.61 short shuttle, a 7.44 3-cone, and a 9-foot broad jump.
9-foot broad. I'm just looking at Will Hernandez's now.
The same thing?
Not necessarily, but kind of close. The vertical jump is what, though? You said
the vert was terrible. That was the one thing he
what
couldn't
was
do.
It, though?
27.5.
That's so funny because Will Hernandez's vertical was 24 inches. It was 11th percentile, but he was 65th percentile on the broad, 79th percentile on the 3-cone, and then 63rd percentile in the 20-yard shuttle with a 97th percentile bench press. Will Hernandez. I just don't know what went wrong with that guy.
It's hard to know, and I think he's done better with the Cardinals, hasn't he?
I think so too. And it goes to show you too, man. The Giants have just been an absolute disaster on the offensive line for so long. They just can't develop these guys. When we were talking to Ed Smith, he said, yeah, well, he's fine. And we were like, really? Yeah. I do kind of think, man, it's just the crap nature of the New York Giants, man. This is a plague that we need to shed at this point.
And I don't think the system was ever the greatest fit for him, the old system we had. Like it's a combination of things. He didn't play next to good players at right tackle or even at center. Like there's so many things, but I do think, because I've watched BB now, I do think he's a different prospect than Will Hernandez. I know you agree
Yes.
with this for sure too. So I know there's similar athletic testing, but I do think he's a different prospect. And one thing I also like about Cooper Beebe is just the fact that he's more of, at least according to the Pro Football Focus grades, he's more of a pass blocker than a run blocker. He had a really dominant pass block grades, really dominant true pass set grades, which I like. He's played left tackle in 2021. He played it. He also played a little right tackle in 2023. And remember, Cameron Brasil is coming in with a love for position versatility. That's something I keep hearing when it comes to Carmen Brasil. I keep hearing that with Carmen Brasillo. He loves position versatility. Now you've got a guy who's played left tackle for a full season, played some right tackle, and played a bunch of guard. Also, according to the grades, man, 4th best guard in football last year, 12th best the year before, 22nd best the year before that, out of 610 plus guards all those years. I mean, like, I don't want to go fully by the grades, but like the grades line up, the pass blocking lines up, the versatility lines up, and the athleticism lines up. I feel like he just might be a better prospect than people think, or maybe it's just one of those scenarios, Nick, where the athleticism doesn't translate as great to the NFL. We're going to find that out, obviously, but I'm willing to take that gamble at this pick.
As am I. He only allowed 1 sack too in 41 games.
Crazy.
Yeah, and dude, just watch him in space, man. It's nuts
It's fun.
seeing him way down the field blocking defenders who were much smaller than him, and that just takes a level of tracking and angle understanding and athletic ability to do that. Alrighty, Dan. Round 4, pick 107 is where I'm at now. I've had to trade down previously in the draft, and I'm still focusing on the offense. Dan and I, this entire offseason, we've talked about wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. We need to find a big wide receiver to complement Jalen Hyatt, to complement Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. We need to find a big receiver now for Drake May.
Okay.
So I had a wide receiver. I think he's going to be selected around this point of the draft, but he is one that I am intrigued by. He is the son of Hall of Famer Jerry Rice, and that is USC wide receiver Brendan Rice. I got at pick 107, prototypical X type of wide receiver with a huge, massive catch radius and just very impressive contested catches all throughout his tape. Is he Rome Odunze? No. But this is also somebody who I felt when he did face press coverage or press jam, whatever you want to call it, he actually had some release packages to his game, right? So he only faced press, I think, on 17% of snaps, so it wasn't all that often, but I saw some fluidity. I mean, if anybody should be developed as a technician, it should be Jerry Rice's kid, right? So this isn't somebody that I feel like is going to be your dominant alpha one, but I do believe he complements the room very well. He can be your prototypical X. I think he played about 12% of his snaps in the slot. So if you want a big slot, he can do that. And for a bigger wide receiver at just under 6'3", I think he's like 212 pounds. He's not stiff either. He's pretty fluid. He's not Rome Odunze fluid, but he's pretty fluid. I think he could be that red zone target, that third down target, and a player who can come in and develop a rapport nicely with Drake May, just as he did with Caleb Williams.
Well, you know me, I love a good bloodline pick. Always loved a good bloodline pick. I feel like bloodlines are very underrated. You get so many hits. Asante Samuel Jr., who everybody just slept on. Like, there's just countless ones. I don't have to go over them right now. And part of the reason I think is not just the genetic side of it, but the training side of it. You're coming from a family that can afford to help you prepare to be a great NFL player at a really young age. And somebody who knows how to play the position the best as anyone's ever done it in Jerry Rice, who can teach you how to play the position and give you little nuances that you have in your game that you take over right away as a pro, that some guys need to take years to try to develop. I actually haven't watched Brendan Rice. I haven't had a chance to watch him, so I don't have a comment yet on my thoughts on him, but I do like your breakdown, and I do like the things I discussed. And I also think like this is kind of like an arbitrage play on like a Keon Coleman in round 2 at 47. Like, so, and they're not like the exact same prospect, but just the idea of that bigger receiver who's maybe not a true number one, but can help you and fill the role you need.
And he just understands how to use his body, right? Like I love the big receivers who know how to actually use their size to impose themselves on these 5'9", 5'10" cornerbacks. And when you watch Brendan Rice's tape, he understands how to box cornerbacks out and command a catch point, not just because he has this large catch radius and he's good at concentrating and tracking the football into his hands and he's physical, but also just not allowing the cornerback to get position on the football. Like that's demeaning.
Right.
Like that's emasculating, being a cornerback going up against the slant. And you're just trying to like high point the ball and your just little arms cannot get up there because some bigger, more dominant player specimen is boxing you out. And I think Brendan Rice at least has that in his arsenal.
And we've seen that with Mike Williams in the NFL. He's had a lot of success just doing that, like simply just playing that role. And it's very tough because there's a lot of matchups that you're going to find yourself in where there's team just, whether it's via injuries or depth, whatever it is, they don't have the corners to match up against these types of players. That's why you want these types of receivers on your roster because of that. And I still think Isaiah Hodgins, by the way, can potentially be that for the Giants if they upgrade quarterback. I really do believe that. I'm not giving up on Hodgins. His tape was too good in 2022. And I just think the passing offense is the bigger issue there, the O-line and the quarterback play.
And I'll say one more thing about Rice. One of his knocks is, he had a limited route tree at USC.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the guy has a release package. He's going to be able to run routes because I think he's
Jerry Rice's son,
and he's Jerry Rice's son, the best route runner of all time. Now, I think there's a lot of upside to this type of pick, and that's what I tried to do from here on out is just bank on upside and more unique type of players.
And that's a theme that we've had throughout our draft coverage, Nick, since we started doing this. And it's also kind of been a theme for Joe Schoen. I mean, there's been a few outliers, but he has looked toward athleticism and upside and youth on these day 3 picks. So I'm going to do the same thing in my picks, and I did do the same thing in my picks. So let's give a quick recap of your draft, and then I'll do mine real quick. Then we'll go over when our next picks are.
Yes. So I traded up to pick 3 with the Patriots to select Drake May, quarterback out of UNC. And then I traded my pick 70 down to pick 82 and collected 117 and 191 to get Cooper Beebe. And at 82 is what I ended up receiving after I traded to collect those future day 3 picks. And then I also got Brendan Rice. So right now I got Cooper Beebe, Brendan Rice, and Drake May.
3 offensive players for Nick right now. Really nice foundation there for Drake May. 2 of 3 private visits there that the Giants had. And what I did in my draft was, and by the way, remember, Nick and I did these completely separately. Like I literally had no idea what he was going to do. I didn't even know if he was going to trade up or if he wasn't. You guys he probably had a little hint that I was going to try to make my trade up. I mean, we're so close to Drake May. I had to at least try. But I traded up for Drake May, gave up Darius Slayton next year's second, this year's third, next year's third. Then I traded from back up. I went Trader Joe, similar to the Wan'Dale Robinson draft from a few times. Traded back twice from 47. Got myself the first defensive player that either of us took, Jaden Hicks, the safety. Then at 84, got myself Trey Benson, the running back out of Florida State. And then at 97, Nick and I picked the same player in both of our drafts, just a little bit different points. And a few picks later, I got Cooper Beebe, the guard from Kansas State, who, again, does have some versatility, has played left tackle, right tackle. I think in the NFL, we probably want him on the interior. But again, Carmen Brasil likes versatility. So when was your next pick, Nick?
Pick 117.
Okay. I have one just before that.
All righty. Take it away, my friend.
So in my trade from 92 down to 97, I also gave up next year's 4th round pick. So I have traded some picks, Nick. I've traded my
How many picks did you have next year?
Not a lot, Nick. Not a lot. Okay. And that's going to be, I got one back at the end, but it was tough and it's not a great one.
What's going on, Big Blue Banter listeners? I'm excited for the football season for several reasons. And one of those reasons is Prize Picks, which is North America's largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform. And it's so simple to use. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including professionals, sharks, and people who are going to exploit you, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you just watch the winnings roll in. It's very simple to play and gives you a little extra skin. I've set my picks in less than 60 seconds. There are so many stats to choose from, and the withdrawals of funds are easy and quick. Dan and I will be adding a segment to our show before every game where we pick our favorite stats, more or less, yards or touchdowns, what have you, and we'll be discussing why from a scheme, matchup, and game theory perspective. I love their promotions and how easy their interface is to operate at Prize Picks. I may select more on tackles for a loss from Bobby Okereke or Kayvon Thibodeau next game. They also do other sports as well. It's a really cool experience. Please join Dan and I in the fun of Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/banter and use code BANTER for a first deposit match up to $100. You will not regret it. You ever feel sluggish or out of focus? Are you stressed? Has your digestive system caused discomfort or flatulence like a certain co-host on this podcast during a live stream? If so, you should check out AG1. When I started drinking AG1 daily, I could feel a real difference in my daily health. I had more energy, I was better off at the gym, and I could focus on my work in a much more efficient manner. That's because AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. Since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health. Not only did I replace my multivitamin with AG1, but I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. I recommend AG1 to all my family and friends because AG1 has a team of doctors and scientists that formulate around the latest science and maintains high quality standards within the industry. Even my friends have started drinking AG1, and they always tell me how energetic they feel and how it's helped them out at the gym, and also it's helped them manage their stress levels. That's why we're happy to have AG1 as our partner. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs when you first subscribe. Go to drinkag1.com/banter. That's drinkag1.com/banter to check it out. Our mental and physical well-being is of the utmost importance. Whether you're a world-class athlete or a podcaster like me, we all need to take that very seriously. That's why I'm excited that Unified Healing is sponsoring this episode of the Big Blue Banter podcast. Unified Healing is a new and super innovative global network of wellness centers powered by Energy Enhancement System, or EE System. If you haven't heard of the EE System yet, you'll want to listen up. This technology promotes wellness, deep relaxation, purification, and rejuvenation. Whether you're here in New York, New Jersey, Arizona, if you will, or hundreds of other locations across the globe, access to a center is easy and affordable. Interested in experiencing the EE System technology for yourself? Go to unifiedhealing.com/banter to learn more and find a center near you. That's UNIFYD healing.com/banter. No material or testimonials on the Unified Healing website are intended to be viewed as medical advice or a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment. And before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, include EE System.
And you know what, Nick? I actually did give up my 4th-round pick in 2025, but I got back a 6th from the Bengals in addition to 92. I gave 97 and 115. So I've have 115. Sorry, I got 115 and 97 for 92 and next year's 4th. So I've got 115 here, Nick. So it's very complicated. Okay. I'll show it all at the end. I'll show my board off. You'll see it. But with pick 115 overall, you know who I took?
Who's that?
Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State.
Love
Again,
it.
I'm banking on a lot of things here. I'm banking on traits. I'm banking on projection. Theo Johnson is a perfect 10 out of 10 RAS score, the 9th most athletic tight end since 1987. At 6'6" and 259, he ran a 4.57 with an elite 1.61 10-yard split, a 20-yard split of 2.68, the vertical jump 39.5, the broad jump over 10, a shuttle of 4.19 is insane for somebody at 6'6", 259. His athletic testing, Nick, this is so interesting, was almost identical to Jimmy Graham when he came out of Miami. Yes. And you know what? He doesn't have the production of Jimmy Graham. He's probably never going to be the receiver of Jimmy Graham. But when I watch Theo Johnson, I feel like there's a lot more to chew here. Like, I watched him versus Iowa, and there was a play where he runs just a little curl over the middle, and the way he throttles down and is able to get like his feet to stop and turn back to the curl, and then how he extended away from his frame to an off-target throw, a terrible throw from Drew Aller. I was like, damn, this dude has it. But in addition to what I think is a lot of upside as a receiver based on his traits, ability to extend away from frame, the jumping, the leaping ability, the explosiveness, the change of direction, the sheer size, and the amount of ground he can chew up. I love these 6'6" athletes like him and And Luke Musgrave was a tight end I loved in last year's class. He doesn't move like Musgrave. I don't think anyone at 6'6" will again for a while. That's kind of like the Rob Gronkowski, like rare trait, but he moves so well for 6'6". And those types of guys who have that kind of frame, they chew up ground when they're moving. They eat up space so much faster than the shorter tight ends. And, I think that there's a ton of upside as a receiver because I feel like the system and the quarterback play was so bad at the collegiate level, but it's backed up too, Nick. He had the second highest career off target rate of all tight ends with 11% off target rate as a receiver. And I thought this was really interesting from Dane Brugler's The Beast. He said he knows for a fact that Pat Fryermuth influenced Theo Johnson a lot when he was there, and he showed him what it takes to play a big physical style of football. And then you kind of watch the tape and you see it. Like, he's there. He's not fully there, but he's getting close to being fully there as a blocker with the 6'6", 260 frame that really translates to the next level. So if you can get me a true Y who's on that line of scrimmage, really evolving into an even better blocker with already some flashes as a good blocker and unlimited receiving upside, considering the bad situation he was in with all the off-target throws not really used, I just think this is the perfect type of bet that you make on day 3. I don't think you make this bet earlier, and he might go earlier. I'd rather wait a little bit because I still think it's a lot of projection. I still think it's going to take a lot of time. Hell, a lot of my picks could take time. This pick could take time. Jaden Hicks, I think, could take a little bit of time, but I'm willing to take that bet and wait my time out. So now I've got my 4th pick, which is another player who it's my 5th pick, another player who was brought in for a private visit. I'm 5 for 5 on private visits right now.
Man, I want to see this 12 personnel package with Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, dude. Double Y set that up. Play action efficiency. I absolutely love the upside of Theo Johnson, what he can offer as a blocker, and just the overall size profile, athletic profile. He was somebody that I loved before the combine, and then once the combine happened, I was like, oh, now you can totally see how there's so much more meat on the bone because he was playing in an offense that really did not target him unless it was in the red zone and with a quarterback that, let's be, I guess, kind and say is not an optimal quarterback to have in there.
Yeah, I mean, he could get better. He's got a lot of upside, Drew Aller, obviously.
He did not play well last year, though.
No, he was horrific last year, just beyond bad. Before we get to your next pick, Nick, I find this interesting. We really didn't say a word to each other about this at all. And yet we have a very similar draft. Like, we both went crazy offensive heavy, and we both traded up for a quarterback. But it's interesting. Was it just value meeting need, or what made you decide to kind of go so offensive heavy?
For me, it was value. See, I like a lot of the defensive players who will realistically be there in the second round. I traded my second round pick, though, so I didn't have that second round pick. And then in the third round, I traded to get more assets, and I lost out on a couple defensive players, but I also had my eye on some of those interior offensive linemen who were around. There was a safety I was considering with the pick 70, but I decided to trade down. He went off the board, but Cooper Beebe was still around. So I ended up going with Cooper
Name
Beebe.
him. This is not Joe Shane. You're allowed to name
him.
him.
This is, the Texas Tech kid.
Okay.
Dadrion Taylor Demerson. I really like that kid's game. I've talked about him pretty extensively. Actually, they're listening to this now. I think I talk about him with Russ, which that podcast is going to drop after this one. So it's not that I am averse to drafting defensive players, but I also wanted to consider the fact that I went with Drake May, and I want to put that kid into the best position to succeed. I want to bolster the offense and develop a continuity on the offense while also focusing on the trenches and bringing in skilled position players. And I'm not done with the offensive skilled position players now that I have the 117th pick. Do you have anything you want to say on that, or should I bleed right into this?
No, I think we follow a similar thing. Like, and I like that we build out trenches for Drake May first, because I did Benson first, but then I went trench right away. I just think it's really important if we're going to get this quarterback to try to find a way to not do what we did with Daniel Jones. And I'm not here to say the only reason Daniel Jones failed is because the Giants failed him. I don't personally believe that. I don't find him to be that, I never found him to be that great of a prospect. And there was big red flags on his tape at Duke, but the fact of the matter is it didn't help. And it was part of the reason Daniel Jones failed, because the Giants failed him. That is definitely part of the reason. There's truth to that. And so I don't want to go through that same thing. And I just feel so strongly about two things, Nick. One, the trenches over the skill players, but also two, that the Giants receivers are not as bad as people think they are. I really don't believe that. I really think you can win even with the current group, especially if you find something late in this draft, or if you hit on one of these tight ends or something like that.
They have 4 wide receivers on their roster right now that you put in there, and it's like those are professional level starting wide receivers.
Right.
It's just they don't have an alpha. And having an alpha is very important in today's day and age. You want that one guy on 3rd and 6 that you can look to and be like, yes, let's deliver him the football. But Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Wandale Robinson, and Jalen Hyatt are all starters or have the potential to become starters very soon if you don't consider Jalen Hyatt a starter right now. I happen to, even though I admit that he is a little bit raw and still needs to develop in a lot of key areas.
Correct. So now what'd you do, Nick? What'd you do with that 117?
Round 4, pick 117, 10 picks after the New York Giants. Nick Filato and Joe Shane selected Brendan Rice out of USC, the wide receiver. I go with running back out of Notre Dame, Audric Estime. He is certainly one of my favorite prospects in this draft class. 20 years old, a top 30 visit. So you're banking on the age, you're banking on the fact that you know this kid. And I just absolutely love his rushing style. People are going to look at him, think, oh, he's a 4.71 physical, yoked up, chiseled type of running back. He's probably just like a plotter, right? I don't think he's just a plotter. I think he has a little bit more to him, a little bit more burst, a little bit more explosiveness. I've watched him break angles from defensive backs and some speedier linebackers at the college level. I don't think just because he ran a 4.71, I don't think he's necessarily heavy footed or slow, right? And the vision and the footwork are the things I absolutely love about him. Once he gets his speed up too, he reaches some top speeds. He has really good acceleration, contact balance. If you need him to go in the A gap, B gap, C gap, you need him to get outside the numbers. He can do all of those things. Doesn't have a expansive receiving profile, but I think he has showed, at least in college, that he's not Andre Williams. And if you dump the football off to him, he'll be able to catch it and get upfield and get north to south. So from a play strength, contact balance, vision, footwork, from really every aspect of playing running back, if you're talking about, oh yeah, you need to take a flyer on a day 3 guy, Audric Estime is going to be like, stamp it. I will sign up for that every day of the week. And I think he complements Devin Singletary so well. So give me this 20-year-old player who doesn't have too much wear and tear on his legs.
It's a home run pick by you. I think he's arguably one of the best values in the entire draft at any position and one of the best sleepers in the entire draft at any position. And I was going to draft him. Going into it, I'm like, I'm getting Estime on my team, but I went Trey Benson early and I went for the home run speed.
Knock on that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. And one other, I love that you brought up his age. He still got plans to develop. And one player he reminded me of, because I watched a lot of this guy's film last year and I really liked him, and we'll see if he can develop to anything, but I think he's a faster version of this player. I want to make this clear. He reminded me a lot of Dwayne McBride out of UAB, who I liked watching a lot last year. And I think McBride, when I watched, was always tracked down in the open field and really didn't have that. But when I watch Estime, there are some breakaway runs. Yes. And that's going against a much higher level of competition than UAB went against at Notre Dame. So I think there's more juice than people realize with this prospect.
You want to hear my comp for him?
Yeah.
Okay. A faster Chris Carson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I actually kind of love that.
Yeah, he's a faster
higher run. Yeah, he's a higher runner than McBride was too. So I just in the sense of not they're not similar players, McBride, just in the sense of how they won is what I was thinking there. But I do like that Carson comp. Let me ask you this in your mind, is he as much of a physical? Carson was just one of the most physical players I've seen at the running back position.
So I don't remember Carson's tape at Oklahoma State, but when he was in Seattle, it is hard to find a guy. Maybe Marion Barber, rest in peace, was a running back who was a little bit more physical than Chris Carson. But to me, it doesn't necessarily matter because he has more than enough physicality. He has more. Audric Estime has more physicality than any New York Giants running back since Brandon Jacobs.
Wow.
I think that's fair to say, right? Like Rashad Jennings. Rashad Jennings had some physicality to him. Like I always respected Rashad Jennings, but I think if the Giants were to select Audric Estime, he would be the most physical back to come in here since Brandon Jacobs.
I love it.
He's not Brandon Jacobs. Brandon Jacobs is 6'4". You know, Brandon Jacobs was a wildly unique prospect when you look back, and this guy fell to the 4th round because he flared out at Auburn because Auburn had Ronnie Brown and
I was looking at this the other day, dude. He weighed.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Profile. 6'5", which you never see for running back. He weighed in at 265 pounds, dude, and ran a 4.57 at 265.
It's insane.
How did the NFL let that drop to round 4? That would never happen in today's NFL.
That's the crazy thing. It hasn't been that long in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But it's so that guy would never fall.
No.
He would never.
Be like, I need to take a chance on this.
And he had light feet for that.
I know.
It's not like he was a plodding, he was pretty light on his feet. Brandon Jacobs was favorite players.
Before the knee issues that he had a lot, that people don't realize how bad his knees were at the end of his career. And it was for longer than you think. But early Brandon Jacobs, before any of the knee issues, was, like you said, lighter on his feet than people realize and more agile and just a crazy, one of the best athletes I've ever seen play the running back position, straight up. before any of the injuries. So yeah, but I agree with that take. And you know what's so interesting to me in your draft? You got Cooper Beebe, you've got Estime, and you've got Drake May. I think that makes for a really good red zone read type of package, because Drake May at 6'4.5", 230 is going to grow into that body, probably be 240. He's only 21 years old, maybe 245. He's physical as a runner and tough as nails. You've talked about sometimes he takes in too many hits and too many big hits. You have some zone read with him and Estime in the red zone, dude. That sounds really enticing to me.
I think your rushing attack can stay as diverse as it has been over the last 2 years since Dable and Kafka got here, because Estime was so good in counter, so patient to allow those blocks to develop. And I think Cooper Beebe would be elite in a power gap type of system as well. And another thing about Estime that I love, you put him in a phone booth and he makes guys miss. It's crazy being that big. And like I said, he has the plotter type of profile, but he has made linebackers miss in the alley, right? So I think there is next level type of processing and nuance from that running back. And I hope he falls to day 3 because that 4.71 40-yard dash.
I love it. I love your draft so far. What's your next pick? Because I only have one more pick. I've made a bunch of trades and only have one more pick.
Pick 166 is my next one.
Okay, so I have 126, and I did that by trading 178, my next year 7th, and 183 to get 126. And they were keen on getting that pick. Boy, oh boy, am I low on picks next year, but I don't care because I love this stable I've built out. And with my 126th pick, Nick, I picked a player, and I'm curious if you can guess who this is. And it's fine. You don't have to take too long to guess. But he is what I consider to be my true favorite sleeper in this class.
Your true favorite sleeper in this class on the offensive or the defensive side?
Offensive side of the ball.
Another offensive player.
Offensive player.
So it's wide receiver?
I think so. I don't have any wide receivers yet, do I?
Yeah. So is it Jamari Thrash?
No, but I like him a lot too.
Okay. It's not Malik Washington?
No.
Okay, so we're talking about this area of the draft. Can I get a conference?
I'm not even sure what conference this
Okay, so it's a smaller school guy. Is it Malachi Corley?
No,
he wouldn't have fell that far. No, so yeah, just let me know who it is. I'll probably kick myself.
It's Luke McCaffrey.
Okay, right.
Christian, son of Ed McCaffrey. I just think Luke McCaffrey is wildly slept on in this draft class. Let me tell you why. First of all, he had the second best grade of any wide receiver in college football against zone, according to Pro Football Focus. And I see it when I watch him. He's a former quarterback. He understands zone so well, just like Julian Edelman did in the past. I love watching him play. I just watched his tape, and I was like, a few games of him, and I was just like, wow, this dude is better than people realize. 62% contested catch rate, top 10 in that. I saw a really awesome stat on Luke McCaffrey from Jacob Gibbs at Sportsline, one of my guys over at CBS Sports. It was career percentage of teams receiving touchdowns when on the field at the collegiate level. Keon Coleman, Marvin Harrison, Roman Wilson, they were the top 3. Number 4 was Luke McCaffrey with 44.2%. I mean, he was their guy when it came to scoring touchdowns, making big plays in the red zone, third downs. I love his hands. I think he's a natural hands catcher. I thought he created good separation, and I thought he showed the ability to adjust to the ball in the air and make fearless catches, man. Just awesome stuff. The route running, to me, I knew it would be there because of who he is and the bloodline and the heritage, but only playing that position for us because he was a former quarterback. He came in as a quarterback, became a wide receiver. And I could just see that his ability as a route runner is only growing. And I love him against zone. I love his size too, at almost 6'2". And so I looked into him and I watched him and I said, you know what, Nick, he must be a bad athlete. He must be testing bad because I don't see him in any rankings high or anything, not talked about much at all. And then I looked at the RAS score, dude. He's the 192nd most athletic receiver at a 3,402 from 1987 to 2024, just under 6'2" and 198. He ran a 4.46. Like, I was not expecting that. And I could see it. Like, he creates separation, but that's good stuff. 10-yard split wasn't bad. 20 wasn't bad. The shuttle and the 3-cone, though, that's really where he stands out, man. A 4.02 shuttle and a 6.7 3-cone. And you could see it when he's changing direction. And I just love those kinds of receivers, the Jackson Smith and Jigbas, the Edelmans, the guys who can change direction like he can. In addition to a 36-inch vert and a 10-foot broad jump, 10-foot-1 broad jump, those aren't great numbers, but they're not bad either. Put all those things together, I'm just really excited about him. He's not Rome Odunze, but I'm getting a lot of the things I like out of Odunze, out of this player, at a much bigger discount. And not, again, he's not Rome Odunze, but this is the type of compliment I want for my receiving core. This is what I love to give Drake May in the red zone right away. I love to give Drake May this solution against zone coverage, Nick. One thing that I discussed with Carl Banks a few weeks ago off the pod and off the record, and he did say I could share this. There were some things that I can't share, but this was one I can share. And he said, one thing that's really really important to NFL GMs right now is how these passing games operate against zone coverage. That's where some of these teams are really filtering out zone plays versus man plays because of how much different the NFL is and the defenses are changing and how many more systems are so zone heavy at the NFL level. And I just love that this receiver can win against zone. I think he's going to be able to win immediately. I think he's the best sleeper in the entire class. I had to get him in this draft, and I'm so happy that I traded back up to 126 to ensure it.
A McCaffrey changing direction really well?
Yeah.
No way.
No way.
Really? That's crazy. So you want to know what mock draftable or who mock draftable has as his highest similar player, highest comparison player.
I
See
don't
if you
know who
remember
it
this
is.
guy. Ryan
Okay.
Spadola.
Who?
Ryan Spadola, a
Do
local
not
kid.
remember this guy
You
at
don't
all.
remember Ryan Spadola? Ryan Spadola went to Lehigh. So I had a bunch of buddies, and he's about our age, right? I had a
Okay.
bunch of buddies who went to Lehigh. I actually visited Lehigh a couple times when I was in the Marines because my buddies were going there. So I never met Ryan, but he was there at the same time. He ended up going to the Jets, and he was kind of one of those like preseason Adam Bachman type of players for the
Okay.
Jets. Yeah, so that's who his highest comparison is. I was wondering if you knew who he was just because
I
he went
remember
to
him.
Freehold Township High School.
Somehow don't know him. I don't remember him, or maybe a pass. But yeah, man, I'm just excited. That's my entire draft haul. So I'm gonna just go over it real quick, and then we can go to your final picks, Nick. But for my draft, and we're gonna put it up at the end. I can actually probably put it up right now while we
Yeah,
talk. Let's do a little present of the screen as we do this. A little share screen, we call it a little share screen. Get this up. Here's my draft. Can you guys see? Can you see this, Nick?
yeah.
Okay, so we've got Drake May traded up for him. Jaden Hicks to patrol the secondary, bring some physicality, replace Xavier McKinney. Trey Benson, home run speed at running back. Cooper Beebe, maybe start this year, maybe not. Position versatility. Hopefully my long-term guard, but can play some tackle if we really need him to. Theo Johnson, betting on traits there at tight end. Love his ability. And then Luke McCaffrey, my favorite sleeper in the entire draft class, Nick. Now let's get back to your mock draft.
Nice draft, Dan. You got a nice overall grade of A.
Yeah.
Heavy focus on the offense, as my draft has been so far. I have not selected a defensive player until these last three picks. I did go defense. I want to go defense. I know Shane Bowen needs some defensive assets. It just didn't work out with this simulation. So with pick 166, 5th round pick, I went with cornerback Nehemiah Pritchard out of Auburn. So this is an outside cornerback who started 4 years at Auburn. Now he is 23 years old already, so a bit of an older prospect, but he had a career catch rate of 49.7%. And this is somebody who I think he could do a better job getting his head turned around. He can get face guarding penalties sometimes, but he's annoying in coverage. He is somebody who will be disruptive at the catch point. He is fluid. He has really good feet as well. He had this interception. I'm trying to remember the game. I think I ended up writing it down in this one report. It was Vanderbilt in 2023, where he was the boundary cornerback, or he was a field side outside cornerback would be the best way to describe that. And he was in press, did not jam, fluid, smooth backpedal, quick feet, eyes on the number 2. He's playing cut technique, right? We talk about that sometimes. Daniel Jones throws into the cut technique. He sees the number 2 run the out route, just jumps it, interception. Beautiful interception, returned it for like 35 yards before he was tackled. So he has those coverage instincts as well. I don't know if he would seize the starting job right away from Cordell Flott, but I am encouraged to bring in this player who is a 5th round pick to come in and compete with Cordell Flott, Aaron Robinson, if the New York Giants get anything out of him. I think this player, Nehemiah Pritchard out of Auburn, does need to work on his tackling. He had a 15.4% missed tackle rate in college, but it's not like he's scared to tackle. He does come up to the line of scrimmage, has physicality. He's just a little bit wild into the tackle point. He has 1,831 snaps on the outside, 399 snaps in the slot. And overall, I think he can operate a zone system because of his eyes, and he can operate a man system, even though he hasn't done much of it in college because Auburn ran more of a zone system, but he has the hips, the feet, and the explosiveness to do so. So I brought him into this cornerback room, see what Jerome Henderson can make of him.
I like it. Giving Jerome Henderson a corner to work with in this class. We wanted to do that. We took a chance last year on a late round corner in Hawkins. He still has a chance to develop, but now we give him another piece there to develop.
Man, Hawkins too is so physical, but Nehemiah Pritchard has more of a coverage upside than a Trey Hawkins. Pritchard, He's about like 190, a little bit less than that, about 6'1". So he has solid overall size, but he's not like a towering type of guy. But in round 6, pick 183, I felt like this guy fell a little bit far. Now, he doesn't have the best production profile, but
Okay.
he fits what the Giants are looking for from a 3 technique with some upfield burst, and that is Baylor defensive lineman Gabe Hall. Again, another 23-year-old, but he's a 23-year-old who I think has flashed as a pass rusher. I think it's frustrating that he hasn't necessarily had as many sacks as he could have. He had 12 and a half through his 5 seasons, albeit he played only really in 3 seasons with 77 tackles, 16.5 tackles for a loss. He didn't play much in his first 2 seasons at Baylor. But I want somebody who can bend. I want somebody who has lateral quickness. I want somebody who can run these twists and these stunts. And I also want somebody who does have knockback. And I think at this point in the draft, round 6, Gabe Hall has all of those things. He's 6'6", like 291 pounds. So he does have that high center of gravity. Don't love him against the run. Seen him uplifted way too much at the point of attack. I think that center of gravity rises and he just needs to add some sand in his ass. But if you need a situational pass rusher from the 3 technique position, who did a line all over Baylor's front. I mean, Dave Aranda does some crazy stuff with his defensive fronts, and Gabe Hall fit well into whatever he was asking to do. Mostly, primarily, he did play 3 technique, 4 eye shade. So this is a player that I don't want out there on running downs, but pass rushing, maybe he could be developed with Andre Patterson. Take a swing at pick 183, Gabe Hall from Baylor.
Love this pick because you're giving Andre Patterson something to mold. Also, I like taking anyone from Dave Aranda's system, one of the best defensive minds in football, in my opinion, either side, college or NFL. I also love that you said he had knockback ability. That's something that's been stressed by Joe Shane in the last 2 defensive tackles they took, or interior defensive linemen they took, DJ Davidson. And another thing I liked about that breakdown was that he has position versatility. So maybe we can see him a little bit all over the front in different ways because we're going to be expecting some different fronts. You talked a lot about twists and stunts that we're going to be seeing with Shane Bowen. So maybe he can help out in that regard early on. It's a rotational guy. So like this developmental pick.
And then a few picks later, round 6, pick 191. This is the last pick that I have in the draft. I went with defensive back linebacker James Williams out of Miami. We discussed him with Cy. He's somebody that I covered, I think it was before the combine. He didn't test all that well at the combine, but this dude is, I said 6'8" on that last podcast. I was being hyperbolic. He is 6'6" though, as a safety. Really good size,
Crazy.
right? Comes down, just vicious types of hits at the point of attack. Like I absolutely loved watching him. The pop on contact, has a versatile skill set. At the Senior Bowl, they were aligning him in the box. And when he did align in the box at Miami, he showed, I would say, underrated eyes. Now, the transition from safety to linebacker, from you're keying and diagnosing your running keys, it's going to be a little bit of a jump. I actually felt like there was something there. Now, I don't think he's going to be a full-time safety or a full-time linebacker, especially not right now. He can develop into that possibly. He's not the best athlete. He is more of a thumper, but I think this is a mismatch guy for big nickel, for big dime that you can bring in and he can just be harassing. You can bring him on blitzes. And I think he's also somebody who will provide value early on special teams. So I wanted to bring him in, not the most fluid guy, a little bit clunky in his transitions, but again, pair him with a good coaching staff and they can maybe do something with a unique talent. I'm hoping he could be like the next Jaron Curse. That would be the hope, but that's such like a ceiling type of play. And if you can get 75% of that, it's a home run.
I like it. A developmental bet on traits player, another piece to potentially use in this position, not positionless defense, but a defense that's going to need a lot of second and third level defenders with unique skill sets and bring unique traits. All right, Nick, is that all your picks or you had one more?
That is all my picks. I also, James Williams, he's 21 years old, just turned 21 years old. So he is also a younger, just freakly sized type of individual who overcame a lot of adversity early in his life. So let's bring up there it is for the YouTube audience. I have the entire draft of Nick Filato right here. Giants traded up to pick 3, got Drake May, parted ways with 47, next year's 2, next year's 3. And then I wanted to recoup those picks. So I traded 70 for 82, 117, and 191 with the Colts. Selected Cooper Beebe, guard from Kansas State at 107, wide receiver Brendan Rice from USC to pair him with Drake May. And to round out this wide receiver core at 117, I went with halfback Audric Estime out of Notre Dame. I think he has 1A type of ability and would form a really good 1A, 1B with him and Devin Singletary. And that's 4 picks in a row, all offense. And then I went 3 picks defense. 166, Auburn cornerback Nehemiah Pritchard. 183, defensive lineman Gabe Hall out of Baylor. And then 191, safety James Williams out of Miami. Safety linebacker James Williams. And I got a B+, so they liked your draft a little bit better than mine.
little bit better, but I like
Let
both
us know
our
in the
drafts.
comments. Let us know in the comments,
Whose
ladies and
draft do
gentlemen.
you like more? And you can let us know in the comments. You can rewind back to see what my draft was. I let it up for a little bit. We don't have the back-to-back, but it's okay. It's still fun. This was a dueling mock draft, Big Blue Banter podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting us throughout this entire month. It is getting wildly close to the draft. So please subscribe, hit the like button anytime you watch it. Like. Download if you're listening on a podcast. And thank you again. Have a great rest of your week or weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.